Thank you for that wholly undeserved introduction. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
So, yeah, last time I spoke to Diane, I guess a few years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, talking about technology and startups and startup life in Shanghai and in China, and I'm happy to talk about that in the Q&A part. This chat is completely different. And so I'm going to ask me to talk about, sort of what I wish someone had talked to me about when I was your age, which was a long time ago, and how to think about the world a little bit, and, what are we doing and why are we doing it and so on, especially as future leaders. I was thinking, what are sort of the most important issues of the day, especially around the world. Obviously we're here in China. Some of you, I think, go to school in other places, but, what are the most important things kind of happening in the world today? And as young people that are sort of just starting out or almost starting out, you've got, 50 or even 100 years ahead of you. And so, rather than simple tactical things, what do I think you should be doing to think about the future? So I'm going to talk about something totally different, actually. So as you may know, or probably know if you read the news outside of the world, the world is pretty divided. We're divided in a lot of different ways. I'm going to go through all this. A lot of different ways, right? Whether it's, across racial or gender or countries or lots of different things. And so, this is a serious challenge. Yet we know that if we work together, of course you're all working together today, we work together and we have teamwork and we pool our ideas and all these things, forever, since we were cavemen thousands of years ago, things work better, right? If we don't fight all the time, if we don't argue all the time, we actually can, as teamwork, can do a lot of things. But, this is kind of hard. You think, it'd be pretty easy to work together, and what I'm going to talk to you about is, how do you bridge these gaps, and how do you kind of cross these barriers? Because this is where the future lies. Whether we're in technology, or actually some of you doing food things, some of you doing business, some of you doing different things, it all comes to, how do we join together, work as a team, or work with other people that aren't the same as we are, sort of to help the world, right, and be successful and happy and make money and all these things. But we have to really think about these divides, otherwise it's going to be very challenging. Because the more time we spend with people on the other side of the divide, and I'm going to talk a lot about people on two sides, the idea is to melt some of the barriers. If you're in the US these days, recent elections and lots of things, there's lots of problems there, certainly for our most familiar. But a lot of people, don't like black people, have never met one. Don't like Chinese, frankly, never met any, right? A lot of Chinese don't like Japanese, never met any, right? And so you never meet these people on the other side. A lot of people are against gay rights and things, never met a gay person. And so once you start meeting these people and crossing these divides, most of these problems just go away. Right? And so part of the job here is how do we do that? And how do we think about that? Because that, to me, is just really, really important. And so I'm going to argue that to you, and for your life's work, is to cross these divides. Now you're going to do that with business and technology and companies and education and families and travel and lots of stuff. But really, for young people today, starting out, 2017, 2018, 2019, whatever it is, how do you cross these divides? How do you think about helping and working with other people on the other side of things? Because we really need this. The reality is you're already doing this. Right? You all speak English, you're all Chinese, right? You all speak English, come to events like this, some of you are already going to school overseas, so you're already crossing these divides, right? You're sort of at the front of this, especially for young Chinese leaders. We need more of this, right? We need more of this all over the world. And the reality is this is why a lot of us came to China, right? Greg and I, other people, came here, was also sort of cross the ocean, see what things are like over here. Get to understand China, Chinese, various things, and try to cross our own divides, over many years. And so we need to be doing a lot more of that. So if we step back a little, the big picture, it's about as big as I can get, the whole world, right? As I said, there's really a lot of conflict, right? A lot of people are fighting, less than usual, actually. If you look at the number of wars, somebody has a nice graph, I don't have this. If you plot like the number of wars, the number of people killed in wars, we're at the lowest ever. So that's really good. And also the number of people in poverty, thanks to China and other places, is the lowest ever. So we've made a lot of progress, but we still have a lot of conflict. Some of these people you might recognize. In the US, we have this problem in Europe and lots of places, right? And this is just really obvious in the United States today. And Syrian refugees here, and war, and sort of, tug of war, right? People are pulling up my side, your side, my side, your side. And there's a whole bunch of these. And I would argue that usually this is because we're divided, and I'm going to talk about the different ways to be divided. And it's not just me, you, a gap between us, or political parties, but lots of different ways. And so kind of one road or the other, right? And so that really gets us in a different place. And then you get in politics and money and lots of things, and you have lots of challenges. particularly in the days of Trump and other things, it's very much just us versus them. You know, in the U.S. today, maybe not enough jobs, not enough money, not enough whatever. So, you know, I win, you lose. It's all about me, or make America great, or whatever, right? It's not very teamwork oriented, as you might say. And so you get these real conflicts. And we really, you know, this is our job, is to make this go away as best we can, right? That's real important. So, with all that, what divides us? And if you're not familiar with this English term, you know, mind the gap. This is actually British, I think. And it has to do with the subway, right? When you get on the subway car, you'll see it printed, mind the gap, means that little hole between you and the subway car, right? Don't put your foot in it and fall down. So, same idea. So, you know, what is this gap and what do they do? And I'm going to argue there are actually quite a few of these. Some you may not have thought about. First one is personality. This is very easy. Right? Maybe I'm a type A personality, type B, type whatever. Maybe I'm an artist, maybe you're an engineer. You know, lots of different types of people. China's relatively homogeneous maybe, but you go to a place like San Francisco, and I saw someone here who goes to school in Berkeley, right? Who goes to school in Berkeley? You know, Berkeley is a different place, right? And you go between Berkeley and Stanford. These two universities are completely different, and the cities they're in, even though they're very close to each other, completely different people, completely different personalities, you know, and so it's good to go there because you really get to see this, Berkeley especially, because it's still stuck in the 60s, and there are still people who look like this, and hippies, and so on. And it's really very interesting, right? And so you're not all the same. Working with these people about solving problems is really quite interesting. And so that's one, that's an easy one. And you can, you know, look at that. Geography is another obvious one, right? Different people were in Asia, Africa, Latin America, the US, different things, even, you know, islands. People think the US is all the same, probably from this far, right? Right, it's all Americans, right? You go to Alaska, you go to Hawaii, you go to Puerto Rico, you go to Florida or Texas or Louisiana, these places are really quite different. And the people are quite different, and they have different thinking. You know, so even in China it's this way too, right? From northeast, south, west, whatever. It's all one big country, but geography makes a big difference in people's thinking. And again, how do you work together on that kind of stuff? Politics is an obvious one, right? In the U.S. we have Trump and all this kind of stuff, but in Europe too. This is just a real issue, and people really fight over these things, and therefore they don't have friends on the other side. Like really today, like if you're a Republican, you won't date Democrats. You have no friends in Democrats. If you're black, you don't have white friends. All these kind of stuff, right? It's a really serious problem because then you don't know other people, and that's very serious. And so that's an issue. Religion is an obvious one, particularly outside China. Muslims, Islam these days has got a lot of problems. And in China, people like Trump saying all Muslims are bad doesn't really help. But there's Catholics, different things. India has religious challenges. So religion has been a problem for thousands of years, and it's good on one side, but causes divides, right? And again, same thing. Won't marry, won't have friends across these divides, really serious. Gender is kind of an obvious one, male, female, especially in the US. We've seen the Me Too movement and some of the harassment, orientation, and glass ceilings, so it's great to see actually a lot of women here, to become future leaders. But this is still an important issue. We also have sort of, in the US, we have gay rights issues and transgender and all these sort of religion, all these sort of gender issues are still there, and are still serious in a lot of ways. Race is another obvious one, the U.S. particularly, and in Europe with immigrants and so on. Still a big problem, right? One people don't think about is class. Some of you probably come from more wealthy families, some of you maybe some middle class families, maybe some of you are from, rural areas and from sort of roaming backgrounds, and so this matters a lot. This is really the heart of how Trump got elected in a lot of ways, right? So you're taking poor whites, or relatively lower class whites against sort of richer whites and richer, Asians and so on. And this is where this conflict really is. And it's really easy to say, well, those people aren't very smart. They aren't very educated. And that sort of lower class, we're going to ignore them. We're not going to care what they think. And this is exactly what's happened in the United States. And you have to reach across this, and you have to think about how do we, whatever side we're on, how do we work with these people, right? On either side, And that's a real issue. Education's an obvious one. You're all well educated. A lot of people aren't, especially outside of big cities and so on. Again, different thoughts, right? Different perspectives. This is an obvious one. Nationality, right? Chinese, or Japanese, or Korean, or American, or Mexican, or whatever. This is old, very traditional kind of conflict. And the last one's industry. People don't think about this, but it's very easy. That's why I'm really glad to see a lot of you are studying diverse things, because it's not obvious that if you're in technology, you really should be thinking about artists and writers. And people make flowers, and people make buildings, and all kinds of different industries. Because the most innovation you get to Steve Jobs, right? iPhones and so on, right? He went to school he grew up in Silicon Valley, right? But he went to a very liberal school in the 60s, and one of the best things he ever studied was calligraphy. Right? Beautiful stuff, right? And this is why the Mac and other things after that were so beautiful. Nothing to do with technology. But there any of this, right? It was because he looked at really different industries and brought this all together. And this was really true. So one thing you really do in professional lives is spend time in different industries, right? Read different things. We'll talk more about this, but this also is important. So, got all these divides, now what? I actually don't have the answers. I have some things for you to think about and some ways to think about how to cross some of these. And it's not just crossing the divide. Part of our job, or our goal, is to get rid of the divides, or at least break down the barriers. We're never going to have everybody be the same, obviously. But we have a lot of artificial barriers, artificial walls between different things. So we have a Great Wall in China, right? And you don't want to take the wall down, but you want to at least have ways to go around it or through it or over it or whatever. Not only for you, but all the people behind you. Because reality is, you're fairly privileged, you're all going to great schools, going to various places and so on, but there's another, in China, there's another billion Chinese, right, that are sort of behind you, looking to you for leadership and all of this, same in the rest of the world. So it's not just enough for you to jump over the walls. You got to find a way to help other people too, because they're the ones that are, come along for the whole world, right? So that's very important. And so really, this is really quite simple. In the end, you're on one side of the divide, and you just have to go to the other side. Just like these sort of, looks exactly like our little room here, right? We have lots of doors here, but just like this. It's just go over there. And that's not as easy as it looks, but that's really what I want you to be thinking about, is it really isn't very hard to find people on the other side and go talk to them and go learn about them, right? First step, though, is look at yourself. Go down whatever list of divides you like, from my list or your list, and think about where are you? Obviously, you're Chinese. Obviously, you're in China. But where were you in the class, education, politics, religion, all these other things, right? And how do you think about yourself? A lot of people think, oh, I'm great, right? And they never really think about where they are in all this. And is that good or bad? Different question. But then, where are the other people on the other side? So when you're in China, well, that's easy. People over in other parts of the world. But some of these other things are not so easy. Right? And a lot of things you don't have to go very far. If you're all educated, you're all whatever, you can go right outside. There's construction guys outside next to us. Right? But you never think to go talk to them, or go work with them, or go learn something from them. So some of these divides aren't very big. Some actually in Africa are quite large. So thinking about where these people are, actually writing it down makes a big, big difference. Then go there. Right? Again, you can walk in the next building. Or you can go around the world. Or you can, if you want to meet men and women, right across your table. Right? And right across, gender divides, other kind of divides. So it's really not that hard to find people, but you've got to actually try to do it. And of course, they're not going to know who you are. You say hello. Hi. This is hard too, especially in languages and all that, right? But the reality is try to spend time with them. I'm going to give you some examples of where some people do a really, really good job of it. I'm not very good at this. A lot of them are not very good at this, but some people are really good at it, and so we want to learn from them. Very important, the whole point here is how do you see things from their side? In the US, who voted for Trump? I hardly know anybody who voted for Trump. But it's really important to understand why, right? And it's very easy to say they're stupid, and they don't know anything, they're uneducated, and whatever. But they have very important perspectives that you need to know, right? Especially if you want to, solve a political problem, you want to make products for them, you want to sell them food, you want to do whatever things. You really need to know what they're doing and thinking, right? And so there's a very famous English saying, sort of walk a mile in someone's shoes. So that means put their shoes on and, walk with them, right? So if you're in China, I don't know how many of you have been in Chinese, villages out west in Gansu, places like this that are quite poor, and really spend time in these villages. Well, if you're from Shanghai and going to, Jiaotong or Tongji or something, you probably haven't done that, but you might want to. It'd be very enlightening even to see your own country, in ways you might not think what their life is really like, because it's really not like they're not at Starbucks every day, right? They don't have iPhones, they're not typing on Macs. It's a different life, and you walk them out in their shoes. It's quite interesting. The famous movie, hard to see, To Kill a Mockingbird. If you haven't seen this, it's a big one. And it's a great quote. You never really understand a person until you consider things from his point of view, like this. So you sort of climb into his skin and walk around it, which means really, understanding someone else's life by being there. And it can be over 5 minutes of tea. Or it could be talking about someone who will spend a year doing this. It's really nice. But this is just really, really important, right? Because you find out that there are some crazy people. But most people on the other side of the divide are not crazy. They're not evil. And they're not stupid. Now, if you watch TV in the United States these days, this is all you hear. They're crazy, stupid, and evil. And everybody says all of it, but it's really not true, right? And it just creates lots and lots of conflict. The same thing, again, we're going on racial lines, or the Me Too for women, or Islam, or gay rights. You hear all this kind of stuff. And then it's not true, right? But you have to meet and understand people's issues. It's really very important. So I have some examples and some suggestions. I don't have any answers, but I have some. And so part of the goal here is not only to get across the divide and really understand other people, but also to grow yourself. Because in the end, you're interested in improving yourself and your own understanding. And so you say, out of your own zone and out of your comfort zone, which means being uncomfortable. Whether that's going to Chinese villages, or going to Africa, or going to other places where there's nobody Chinese, there's nobody American, or for white Americans going to a place where everybody's black. It makes you uncomfortable, right? And so this is a good thing for you because it makes you grow as a person. So I have my own example. Hard to see that. That's me. Actually wearing a kilt and actually I'm dressed. If you've ever been to Burning Man, everybody know what Burning Man is? Some of you in California know what Burning Man is. This is an event in California that really sort of expands your mind, and you do lots of crazy things, and meet lots of different people, but do different things that you're not comfortable with. But above all else, of all the things you can do to cross these divides, travel is number one. And so it's really going to the places. Mark Twain, famous American writer, has a nice quote about travel is fatal, which means it kills prejudices and small-mindedness and a few other things, right? And the whole point of just going to other places, meeting other people, completely changes your perspective. Jet airplanes. But you don't have to get on a jet airplane, right? You can go to a different region, different city. If you're from Shanghai, you should be going to Beijing, you should be going to the south, you should be going to the west. You can go to other, Suzhou or Ningbo or other places. You even can go to different neighborhoods, different apartments. Like I said, right next door. There's different businesses, different people. Right across the creek, I used to work next door. Right across the creek used to be quite poor, even 10 years ago, right? And there's a lot of gaps that are very, very close. You don't need to be on airplanes to go find them. You can find them, and men and women, you can find them right across the table, in class and other things too, right? So if you know what a gap year is, most of you may be a little old, but gap years are an example of this, where, especially in the UK, after high school, you just take a year and just travel the world. And you have fun, and you go drinking and other things. But the whole point is to meet people that aren't like you, and go to places that aren't where you're from. The Chinese really aren't doing this much yet, but hopefully you see more of this stuff. And the whole point is just get out there, right? And just go see stuff and learn stuff. And it completely changes people who do this. So I recommend everybody does this. But it's that idea of getting out there, meeting other people, hanging out with other friends, and you find out not everybody's like you. Not everybody does things the same way, and all that, right? So, this is another one. Does anybody know who the Mormons are? It's a religious group in the U.S. I'm not suggesting you become Mormon, but the Mormons are very interesting because it's very homogeneous, so they're all white, mostly. All live in Utah in a lot of cases. But they have a very interesting requirement, is that when you, after high school or after college, you must go overseas for a year and teach, usually, and they're doing religious stuff, but basically you must go live, usually in a poor country. So you must go to Brazil, you must go to Africa, you learn the language, and you spend an entire year just in these kind of places, and you really live that life. This is a pretty serious commitment. But it completely changes their perspective on things. And so you start talking about, how do you improve water, how do you improve food or whatever in places like poor Africa. They know, they've been there. And it makes a big difference. It's kind of weird that if you go, the sort of headquarters of Mormonism is in Salt Lake City, Utah. And if you go there, it's very conservative, they don't really drink. It's very white, and yet it's one of the most diverse places in the world because they speak hundreds of languages. Right? And if you want to speak Chinese or Japanese or Vietnamese or all the African Ubuntu languages, they're all in Salt Lake City. So it's a very interesting dynamic. They have a perspective on the world that is really hard to get elsewhere. So I'm just suggesting you think about, hey, how can I do that? Not for a year. Go for a week, go for a month, go somewhere else. That's an idea. How do you go to places, how do you go teach? There's a lot of opportunities to do stuff. In your case, Chinese government's funded a bunch of stuff. So how do you tag along to one of these things and go see the rest of the world? And it could be Africa, it could be Indonesia, it could be things close, Burma, India, various things. But it's very interesting. Do you know who the Amish are? Another religious group. Very, very interesting. I love this picture, building a barn. But it's a very small religious group in the U.S., very old, hundreds of years old, and you can look them up. So they are the exact opposite of you. Right? The Amish believe that technology is not evil, but that no technology is allowed in their houses, in their businesses, anywhere. Right? They don't drive cars, and they don't do anything in that sense. Right? It's all about family and community and teamwork. And this is an Amish barn raising. You see how many people are here? Right? There's like 50 guys who are doing this because you can't build a barn by yourself. It's impossible. It's too big. Right? So they do it as a team, as a community, and come together. And so it's very, very, very traditional. Really, probably the most traditional people in the world, and they live in the United States, in Pennsylvania and places like this. But again, you go spend time with them, you really understand their perspective on family, and on how technology, like Facebook or Weibo or Weixing or whatever, is really not that good in a lot of ways, right? Telephones and things bothering you all the time. They don't have any of that. And so I would want to live like that, but there's a lot to be learned from them about how they do things and how they work together and how they do things, because their entire community works on teams. And so again, this is just an example of various things that you can learn. I think this is very cool. Also, how do you reach across race, right? Especially if you're all Chinese. Even China has its own sort of multiple racial thing, but outside the world is much more diverse and complicated, right? And so how do you have friends across different areas and different stuff? And again, different interesting experiences. If you've probably never been in a Southern Black Baptist church, but this is an experience, right? You've seen pictures of nice churches and whatever. You go to Black Baptist churches, these are huge singing, kind of dancing, kind of massively loud, chaotic places that you would never see, right? And about people that are very, very different from you, almost completely different from you, right? Black, Southern, Baptist, religious, whatever. They're different than you in every possible way, yet very interesting, right? And have perspectives on China and on globalization and all these things that are quite different than yours, perhaps. And you can learn a lot from just hanging out with these folks. And they're super nice. They'll feed you into your stuff. Very cool. Politics is a little harder, especially in the U.S. It's a big deal. But you've really seen this case where everybody's become fully polarized. Nobody talks to anybody on the other side. You really have to avoid this. It's less of an issue in China, but outside the world, this is a big issue. Religion's another one, also not so big in China. But people that visit Jerusalem, go to Rome, go all these places, really get a whole different view of things. And fortunately, most religions are getting along now, but not all. And there's more and more connections and so on. So this is just really important to get there. Gender in theory is an easy one, right across the table again. But it's not actually that easy, right? I went to a school that was 90% guy, 80% guys. Right? And so it was very hard to have female friends or anything, right? And we know from the Me Too and all this kind of stuff, even in Silicon Valley, which in theory is very enlightened and very modern, these gender issues are still big issues. Women's ability to move forward, women's technology, women's leadership, harassment, all these things are still issues today, and they're going to be issues for quite a while. And for many reasons, but some of it is how we raise our children. The same thing, it's also having friends, not just boyfriends and girlfriends, but having friends sort of across the divide, and gay friends and other things. It's also about leadership and working for women and working for men and just understand how all that works. Believe it or not, people don't do that, and especially in different industries, right? In car industries, manufacturing, it's all guys, right? There's one girl, right? And this is not good for anybody. And so this is perhaps the easiest in a lot of ways because, more women here than guys actually. But it's also really hard. And it's cross-culture and all this stuff, right? And so try and think about how we can do that. Cross-class, this is a little easier. I can do this. I didn't do those things. But, again, finding people that are different class than you and spending time with this is pretty easy, often in your family. Even in my own family, there's several different classes of people in education and so on. And probably is in yours too. And so how do you think about crossing that? And that's really it. Really that easy. I realize this kind of looks like Greg, but it's not. On the bridge here. But that's really what it is. And it's really crossing these bridges. And in the end, it's a path for each of you. And not only do you try to become more educated and family and all this kind of stuff, really be thinking, I urge you to really be thinking, how do you cross these divides and think about this, as a reminder. There's quite a few divides, pick a few. If you even cross half of these, if you take 7 or 8, even if you manage to cross half of them in the next year or two, it will change you a lot, right? And if you can cross all of them, or most of them, it will change your whole life, and probably your career. Right? Really change what you're interested in doing, and help. It's very easy to sit here, go to a nice school, get a nice job, get married, never leave this, never leave Shanghai. But I would suggest that's not the best use of your talent. Right? Think about these things. And once you've done the whole list, you can do it again. Right? If you do it in the next few years, then you're free, right? The world has plenty of divides, plenty of things like this, right? But as a young people, especially in China, going out in the world and really being the future leaders, again, I argue it's your job and your calling to be doing this. And really be sort of crossing these oceans and crossing these divides. About how to do this stuff. Think about how you can build bridges. Okay, not tear things down, but how do you build the bridges for yourself, for everybody, for the whole world. And of course, bring success, happiness, and all these things. That's it. Good luck.